Order. Question number 3. Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Speaker, this question is to the Prime Minister and asks, does he stand by all his statements?
Right Honourable Prime
Speaker,
Minister.
yes.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question. Right
Does he
Winston.
stand by the following statements? May last year, there is no housing crisis in Auckland. May last year also, I do not believe there's a housing crisis so there's a crisis in housing. June last year, it's not a crisis. April this year, so I don't think you could call it a crisis. And just last month, I don't believe a capital gains tax works.
Right Honourable
Mr. Speaker,
Prime Minister.
yes, I stand by all of those statements. Interestingly enough, if you look at the information by the Real Estate Institute across New Zealand, figures actually show that while Auckland house prices are up, the rest of the country is very mixed. Some are actually down. And interestingly enough, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the equivalent period of time under Labor, or say under the last Labor government, house prices doubled. Under National, they've gone up nationally 35%.
Supplementary question.
Order. Supplementary question. Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Does he stand by this statement by himself? Quotes, I don't believe foreigners buying the odd house in New Zealand is what's driving the escalation of prices. End of quotes.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, yeah, I believe that statement is correct. I think that there are quite a degree of confusion, actually, about the people who buy houses in New Zealand who may come from overseas originally, or maybe not Caucasian, but I think the number of very large purchases of properties in New Zealand from offshore is likely to be quite a low number, lower than what people expect, in my view.
Supplementary question.
Supplementary question. Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Does he agree with Lyndon Fairbairn of all property?
Order. 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 Would the Leader of the House contain himself? Would the member please start his supplementary question again?
Does he agree with Lyndon Fairbairn of All Property Solutions, who, when asked on Morning Report this morning if the government's measures will be strenuous on foreign buyers, replied, quotes, no, not at all, end of quote.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that's an interesting view that the gentleman might have. I don't know who he is, but let's put it this way. If the rules are, as they will be, that a foreign buyer or a non-resident taxpayer, that's the test actually, a non-resident taxpayer has to provide their IRD number, has to provide a New Zealand bank account, and by the way, by the middle of next year, we'll have withholding tax taken off any sales of properties, and they'll then have to reverse the burden to get that tax back. If that is no effect, then that's a very interesting world that gentleman lives in, but I'd suggest it's one that's quite a long way away from reality.
Supplementary question.
Order. Supplementary question. Right.
The Prime Minister, why doesn't he just stop tinkering around the edges and, to use his words, get some guts and back New Zealand buyers and stop foreign non-residents buying New Zealand land and houses?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we know that Mr. Peters' views about foreign investment and the likes into New Zealand. But interestingly enough, maybe the member, when he returns back to his office for a nice cup of tea this afternoon, might want to have a look on the Sydney Morning Herald website, where they actually talk quite openly about how house prices are rising much faster than they are in Auckland. And the article goes on to say it would be nice if there was a single guilty party. Foreigners, investors, negative gearing, local government, capital gains, discounts, cheap money, population growth. But it's much more complicated than all of those.
Question number 4. Grant Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance. Does he stand by his statement that, quote, we believe the strong underlying economy